Hey everyone, and welcome back to my channel. So in today's video I'm going to be doing the Unpopular Opinions book tag. This tag was originally created by The Book Archer, so I'll leave a link to their video in the description if you'd like to check it out. But I have also done the opposite of this tag, which was the Popular Opinions book tag. I think I did it last month or the month before, and I actually said in that video that I didn't feel like I could do the Unpopular Opinions book tag because I feel like most of my opinions on books are pretty basic and are pretty popular. I feel like I tend to enjoy the books that everyone else enjoys, and I tend to dislike the books that everyone else dislikes. But I was looking at the questions recently and I thought, you know what, I could probably give an answer for all of these questions, so I'm going to give it a go, and hopefully this video isn't too boring. I'm also going to try and keep this video a little bit light-hearted and not too mean, I guess, is what I'm trying to say. Obviously, whatever I say in this video is an opinion. I don't like to give disclaimers because I don't like to feel as if I'm apologising for having an opinion, but quite often, even when I don't love a book, I can often see why other people do love it, if that makes sense. And so I don't like to be overly critical, and I don't like it to come across like I'm saying that I am the authority, and if I dislike a book then that is a bad book, because I don't think that's true at all. I don't think that there are many bad books out there. I think that we all have different tastes, and it's actually quite interesting to understand, and I find it quite interesting to watch this type of video to see why some people might have loved a book that I hated, or why some people might have hated a book that I loved, if that makes any sense. I feel like I'm rambling, but I'm going to get into the questions. I think there's 9 questions in total, and like I said, they all relate to unpopular bookish opinions. So question number 1 is a popular book or series that you didn't like. I actually had a look on Goodreads to see if there's any books that are rated quite high, like in general on Goodreads, that I rated low, and the top book that came out was Where the Crawdads Sing by Delia Owens, which I think I read last autumn. And before I read this book, I hadn't seen any negative reviews. Every single review that I'd seen was like a 4 or 5 star review, and so my expectations were really high going into it. This is a historical mystery, and I really liked the writing. I thought that it was very atmospheric and very descriptive and very immersive, and so I can understand why other people love this book because I enjoyed that part of the book. However, what I really struggled with was the mystery. I didn't like certain things within the plot, and I really didn't like the ending. It wasn't for me, but it's one of those situations where I wouldn't want to put other people off from reading it because I know I'm in the minority and that most people absolutely love this book, and I've seen so many people say that it's one of their all-time favourite books, and so maybe it is just me and there's something that I'm missing. Question number 2 is a popular book or series that everyone else seems to hate but you love. So again, I had a look on Goodreads to see if there are any books that I rated high that other people have typically rated low, and the one book that stood out was The Love Square by Laura Jane Williams, which I read this last year and really enjoyed it. I did read an arc through NetGalley, and so I read it in advance before it came out, and I can see the criticisms of this book because it's marketed as a romance, and I would say that the romance is probably the thing that I liked the least in that book. The main reason that I personally love this book is because I could really relate to the main character Penny, because she was also diagnosed with cancer in her 20s, and that is a huge motivation behind her actions, and I haven't read many books with that type of representation, although right, a lot of the reviews, like the negative reviews that I've seen for this book, have talked about how Penny is an awful character and she's really selfish and she's just not very nice. And I'm sat there thinking, well, I can really relate to her, so what does that say about me? So yeah, I don't know whether I should really admit to that, but I did really relate to her as a character. I just felt like the romance was really lacking. The next question is a love triangle where the main character ended up with the person you did not want them to end up with. Okay, so the only book series that I could think of for this question was Twilight, and I don't know whether this counts as a spoiler, but I'm going to put a spoiler warning on the screen here just in case, even though this is quite an old series and I feel like most people do know who Bella ends up with. If you don't know and you don't want to be spoiled, then skip ahead to the next question. I'll put a timestamp on the screen, but I did not like Edward in this book. I read this, I think, when I was about 15 or 16, and even then I didn't like insta-love, and I feel like this book is classic insta-love, because I, as a 14-year-old or 15-year-old or 16-year-old, however old I was when I read this book, I could not understand what Bella saw in Edward and why she liked him, other than the fact that he was supposedly really, really good looking, but they seemed to fall for each other really, really quick, and it seemed to come out of nowhere. And even, like, I haven't read this book as an adult. I think the last time I read this series would have been when I was 16, 17. So I don't know how I would feel about this series now, but my favourite book in this series is actually New Moon, which, do I have it? Because I really, really liked Jacob as a character, and as an adult I can look at this series and see that it is very, very problematic, and actually neither of the main love interests were very good, but I still think that Jacob was a much better fit for Bella compared to Edward, who was a literal stalker, can we just say. I know that for a lot of people this is their least favourite book in the series, but it's actually my favourite because Edward isn't in it that much. And I will never forgive Stephenie Meyer for what she did to Jacob's character in Breaking Dawn. I still to this day like to pretend that Twilight is a trilogy and that Breaking Dawn just doesn't exist. I still haven't read Midnight Sun, the latest book, because I refuse to read a book that's told from Edward's perspective. I just don't think I would enjoy that. So yeah, Team Jacob all the way. Question number 4 is a popular book genre that you hardly reach for. This is probably the hardest question for me to answer because I feel like I read most genres. Obviously there are certain genres that I read more than others, like I read a lot of fantasy, I read a lot of thrillers, and I read a lot of romance, but I still do occasionally dip into other genres. I think if I had to give an answer for this, I would probably say either sci-fi or historical fiction, but I have read sci-fi in the past and I wouldn't not read a book just because it's sci-fi, and the same with historical fiction. I always say that I never really reach for historical fiction, but some of my favourite books are historical fiction books, or they're, for example, fantasy books that are set within a historical setting, and so I don't know why I don't read more of it, to be honest. Question number 5 is a popular or beloved character that you do not like. Okay, so I think I lied with that last question because this is actually the hardest question for me to answer. The only character I can think of is Mal from Shadow and Bone, but I don't think that that's an unpopular opinion. I feel like most people, or many people, don't like Mal in the books. I did like him in the TV show. I really liked what they did with his character, but I wouldn't call him a beloved character. Just for the record as well, I also did not like the Darkling, or no, maybe that's a lie. I was a fan of the Darkling and his character, but I didn't ship him with Alina. And that's all I think I can really say without spoilers. Question number 6 is a popular author that you can't seem to get into. Okay, so I know that Cassandra Clare is a really popular author and a lot of people absolutely love her books, but I read the first book in the Mortal Instruments series last year, The City of Bones I think it's called, and it really wasn't for me. Maybe if I'd read it when it came out, then I would have enjoyed it a lot more, but I found it really cheesy and I found the plot really, really predictable. There's something that's revealed partway through the book that I saw coming from a mile away, and when it was confirmed, I thought, okay, so if that's true, then maybe this could also be a possibility, and I was expecting at least one of the characters to just ask that question, but none of them, it didn't seem to click with any of them, and it ended up making me feel like the characters were kind of stupid. So yeah, I think I've decided that Cassandra Clare's books just aren't for me. Question number 7 is a popular book trope that you're tired of seeing. I'm not going to give spoilers for any particular books, but I really, really hate the resurrection trope. It really, really irritates me because I don't understand why authors can't just kill off their characters, just leave them to die. Sometimes I can see that it makes sense within the context of the story, but I hate it when a character dies and I am invested in that character and I care about them, and so they die and I feel sad about it. I put the book down and I cry, and then I compose myself, I pick the book back up, and a few pages later they're back to life. Really, really, really irritates me. Don't rip my heart out and make me cry if you're just going to bring them back to life a few pages later. I hate it. I think that there are a few exceptions where I can be okay with it if it makes sense within the context of the magic system and within the story, but 9 times out of 10, I hate it. Question number 8 is a popular series you have no interest in reading. I've already mentioned that I'm not a huge fan of Cassandra Clare's writing, so I'm probably never going to pick up the Infernal Devices or what's her other series called? The Dark Artifices, I think. I also read the first book in the Caraval series by Stephanie Garber last year, and I really didn't like it. And I know that it's a really popular series, but there was just something about the plot that didn't make a lot of sense to me. I really hated all of the characters, and I've heard that book 2 follows a character that I really didn't like in the first book, and so I'm probably not gonna continue that series. I don't know if that was the question. The question was a popular series I have no interest in reading. Yeah, I'd probably say The Infernal Devices by Cassandra Clare. I can't think of any others off the top of my head. Question number 9 is, the saying goes the book is always better than the movie, but what movie or TV show adaptation do you prefer more than the book? I feel like The Lord of the Rings is a really obvious answer to this question, but I do think that the films are a lot more accessible in comparison to the books. I do love both, don't get me wrong. I actually reread The Lord of the Rings last year and really enjoyed it, but given the choice between rewatching the films and rereading the books, I would probably choose to rewatch the films, if that makes sense. I actually probably should have held up The Hobbit for this, because while I love both the Lord of the Rings films and the Lord of the Rings books, when it comes to The Hobbit, I think that the book is so much better. I also wanted to quickly mention Outlander, because I love this TV show and I did enjoy the books. I read the first 4 books in the series, I want to say nearly 2 years ago, and I haven't continued because the only reason I was able to get through the first 4 books is because I read them while I was in hospital. I spent a week in hospital 2 years ago and I didn't have anything else to do, and so I literally read for about 6 hours a day, and that's the only way I was able to get through them all. Haven't been able to bring myself to pick up the rest of the series. I think my main issue is that the first book I gave 5 stars, and the second book I might have also gave 5 stars or 4 stars, but by the time I got to the 4th book I only gave it 3 stars, and if there's one thing I hate, it's reading a 900-page book only to feel it's average. I hate reading massive books just to give them 3 stars. But yeah, I think that does bring me to the end of the video, so thanks for watching if you've made it this far. If you have any thoughts on these questions, if you agreed with any of my answers, or if you disagreed with any of my answers, then please let me know in the comments and we can have a chat. I hope that this video has turned out okay, because it's taken me a long time to film. I have an ear infection at the moment, which is why I haven't been doing videos recently. I can only half hear out of this ear, and so it's been a bit of a struggle. It's taken me about an hour to film this video, and I'm willing to bet that it's only going to be about 10 minutes long. So yeah, if you did enjoy this video, please don't forget to give it a thumbs up and click subscribe if you haven't already, and I will see you next time. Bye.